China here has achieved a major milestone in high-speed transportation. The new world record in superconducting magnetic levitation technology.
China has reached a new speed record with its 2026 Maglev train, hitting 1,000 kilometers per hour. It zooms faster than most jets, and it might just be the solution to moving thousands of people on ground in just a matter of minutes. What does this mean for the future of travel? Join us. Explore China's recent technological breakthrough, the Maglev dream, flying on rails. China is massive, and when you look at it from above at night, its cities are spread out like bright islands in a dark sea. Those islands of light are towns and cities connected by people, goods, and ideas. To link up all these distant places, China didn't just build regular roads. Instead, the country built one of the biggest high-speed rail networks on the planet, stretching across thousands of kilometers and weaving through plains, valleys, and mountains. This network helps millions of people move around every day and takes up huge amounts of land that would otherwise take hours or days to cross. The normal fast trains in this network run at about 350 kilometers per hour. That speed is far faster than most people have ever gone on land, and it cuts down travel time between major cities by hours compared with traditional rail travel. These trains are powerful and efficient, and they have helped China open up economic and cultural links between regions that once felt very far apart. But even as these trains sped ahead, engineers and planners started to think about something faster. They began to look into what it would take to push beyond the usual limits of wheel-on-rail technology. That thinking naturally brought them to a very special type of train, Shanghai's Maglev. Since the early 2000s, Shanghai has been floating passengers from the airport into the city on a train that doesn't roll on wheels at all. This system uses magnetic levitation, or Maglev, which means instead of having wheels and axles, the train hovers above the track. It actually floats about 10 centimeters above its guideway, with nothing touching the steel underneath it. Because of that, engineers had to design and build a completely new kind of rail system just for it, showing what was possible when you try out something new. With passengers on board, this Shanghai Maglev regularly reaches around 431 kilometers per hour, and during special tests, it has hit even higher speeds. For years, this made it one of the fastest commercial trains in the world, and people who ride it often describe the experience as weird. One moment you are lined up against the platform, and the next moment, the station seems to slide away like paint on a wall being pulled back. The buildings zip past, and everything outside blurs into long lines. Inside the train, it can feel almost like you are gliding through the air in stillness, rather than rattling over tracks. Now, the science underneath these trains is very different from what most people learn about regular railways. The basic idea and how engineers make magnetic levitation work is quite complex. Both the train and the track, often called a guideway, have special parts called electromagnets or coils. These are not ordinary magnets. They become magnets only when electricity flows through them, and engineers can turn them on and off very quickly and control them using advanced computers. When electricity moves through all these coils, it creates magnetic forces that do two things. Some of those forces lift up the train, so it hovers a few centimeters in the air. Other forces pull forward or push backward, so the train can speed up or slow down. The result is a vehicle that floats above the ground and keeps gliding forward without physical contact with the track. Notice how two magnets with the same poles facing each other jump apart when pushed together? That same kind of magnetic force is at work here, but multiplied and controlled carefully so that the train stays stable, balanced, and safe, even as it goes faster and faster. Modern Maglev systems are even more advanced. For example, Chinese engineers have developed a new type of Maglev train that uses superconducting magnets and specialized guideway coils. These superconductors can carry electricity with almost no resistance when cooled to very low temperatures, allowing stronger magnetic fields and more efficient levitation and propulsion. The new models are upsized with lightweight materials, streamlined shapes, and onboard systems that use 5G communication and AI monitoring to control speed, power, and safety in real time as the train runs along its track. Instead of relying on wheel-on-rail friction, these high-speed systems use what's called linear synchronous motors and repulsive magnetic forces to push and pull the train forward. The train floats just a few centimeters above the guideway, and engineers tune the magnetic fields so precisely that even tiny changes in gap or position are corrected instantly. This kind of automatic control helps keep the ride stable even at high speeds that would make a regular train feel unsafe. Because nothing touches the track, there is almost no friction. Without wheels or axles rubbing against metal, fewer parts wear out, and the train can keep moving more smoothly than a conventional train. Some of China's latest experiments have shown prototypes accelerating to even higher speeds. On test tracks using superconducting magnetic suspension, researchers have pushed vehicles up to 700 kilometers per hour in just a couple of seconds, demonstrating the potential for a future where magnetic levitation in low vacuum tubes could take speeds beyond what commercial aircraft now achieve. What was once futuristic has now become part of a growing vision for how people might one day travel between cities in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. However, there are challenges that arise when trains go even faster. The invisible culprits. Most of the time, we walk around thinking that air is nothing at all. We don't see it or feel it when we stand still. But when something starts speeding up, that nothing turns into something very real and very strong. You might not notice it when you walk, but once a vehicle starts to push through the air quickly, that air pushes back on it. When a train begins to pick up speed, its nose has to shove the air in front of it out of the way and push it aside. As the speed goes up, the air begins to build up in front of the train and gets squeezed tighter and tighter, and that squeezed air begins to press back harder and harder. We can imagine this by thinking about riding a bicycle. When you pedal slowly, air barely touches you, but once you lean forward and pedal faster, the wind pushes against you much more. It's the same with trains, only far stronger. Once you reach very high speed, air resistance does not just go up by a little. Instead, it jumps up very drastically. In fact, if you double how fast you are going, the force from the air can become roughly 8 times stronger than before. This is not a straight line increase. It goes up exponentially, which means it gets big really fast as speed rises. So engineers and scientists began to find a way to bring thin air down to the train. That simple idea led to something that sounds almost like science fiction. In China, engineers have been exploring a version of this that uses a very long tube, like a sealed tunnel, that runs over or under the ground. Inside this tube, huge machines pull out most of the air, so that the pressure inside becomes much lower than normal atmosphere. They don't try to take all the air out, just enough so that the air that remains is much thinner than outside the tube. We can compare it to flying at high altitude. Instead of being up in the sky, the thin air is trapped inside the long tube on the ground, and the train travels inside that space. China's versions of these low-pressure tube systems are often called low-vacuum Maglev trains, or ultra-high-speed UHS Maglev systems. These systems have already gone through real tests inside a low-pressure tube and shown that a superconducting magnetic levitation train can navigate and stop safely while floating in a low-pressure environment. This makes moving through that tube a lot easier for a very fast train. Because the outside air is heavier and stronger, it will always try to push into the tube and squash it inward over very long distances. That outside pressure adds up to a huge force. So the tube itself must be built from very strong materials that can spread out the pressure over the whole structure. It must sit on supports that can handle not only the weight of the tube, but also the push of the air and any movement of the ground beneath. But there's another part of the future of ultra-high-speed maglev and low-pressure tube systems that hasn't been mentioned yet. When a train moves very fast and enters a tunnel or a long enclosed space, it acts like a piston. It pushes air in front of it and squeezes it. That compressed air can then release suddenly when the train exits the tunnel, creating a shock wave that can feel similar to a boom or blast. This phenomenon is sometimes called a tunnel boom, and it gets louder and stronger as speeds increase. At speeds that are even faster than most normal high-speed trains, these pressure waves can disturb people living nearby, shake structures, and even affect wildlife. Researchers have found that the shorter the tunnel, the stronger this shock can be, because the trapped air builds up and then bursts out more forcefully as the train leaves the enclosed space. To deal with this, scientists in China have been working out ways to reduce the tunnel boom so that the shock waves don't cause problems. One idea that engineers have been putting together involves installing long, porous structures at the entrances and exits of tunnels that act kind of like sound absorbers. These porous buffers allow air to slip away gradually rather than being compressed and released all at once. In tests, researchers have found that these buffers, combined with porous coatings on tunnel walls in the first part of the tunnel, can reduce the strength of these low-frequency shock waves by almost 96%. That means the pressure spike becomes far less intense and far less likely to create loud booms that could disturb people or structures near the line. These noise mitigation methods are especially important for trains, expected to run much faster than the conventional limit of 350 kilometers per hour. Without sound-absorbing designs, the effect could be loud and disruptive. All of this research has a broader purpose too. As maglev systems begin to test higher speeds, and as concepts like vacuum tubes or hybrid systems that mix maglev with low-pressure tunnels are developed, understanding how air moves and how pressure waves form becomes Even more critical, that knowledge feeds into decisions about how to shape tubes, how to design openings in stations, and how to plan routes so that noise and pressure effects are minimized throughout the whole system. But what safety measures have been put in place in case of any unplanned issues? Safety and security systems. The train, the track, and the special tube where it runs are covered with sensors that are always plugged into powerful computers. These little devices are set up all along the tube and on the train so that engineers can pick up instant readings on pressure, temperature, exactly where the train is, and how strong the magnetic forces are at every moment. Inside control rooms, teams of people stare at huge screens that are filled with lines of numbers, colored bars, and graphs that jump up and down as data comes in. Every single tube segment and each train is being watched in real time, so nothing ever slips through unnoticed. If the air pressure in one section of the tube suddenly begins to drop too quickly or climb too fast, the system can shut down parts of the tube by closing special doors inside it. These doors act like gates, sealing off a section so that other parts can stay safe while engineers fix the problem. The trains themselves don't rely only on physical brakes like you'd see on a normal train. They use magnetic braking, which means they can use the same magnetic systems that push them forward to also pull them back and slow them down smoothly. That way, the magnetic forces do double work and make the ride safer and steadier. Inside the train, tiny decisions about speed and stability are not left to humans. Computers are built into the control system to make up instant choices and reactions that happen many times every second. These systems watch how the magnets are behaving and adjust them so that the train stays perfectly centered and balanced above the track or guideway without touching it. People do still sit in control centers and keep an eye on the whole process, but when it comes to split-second reactions, the computer systems handle those instantly without waiting for human commands. To prepare for the real world long before passengers ever get on, engineers also lay out special sections of tube where air can be let back in when needed, or where access panels and safety doors can be opened, so rescue teams can come in fast if something goes wrong. These areas have to be planned and tested many times to make sure they work exactly as designed under pressure. All these parts, the sensors, doors, computers, brakes, and emergency systems, are continuously tested over and over long before any normal passengers ever ride on the train. When you see pictures of these prototype Maglev trains on test tracks, they often look like rockets on rails. They have very long bodies, sharp, pointed noses, and smooth, sleek sides that are deliberately shaped so air can slip along the surface with as little resistance as possible. The curves of the train are chosen so that air doesn't bang into sharp angles. Every line is meant to help reduce drag and keep it flowing past more gently. To keep the trains both strong and light, engineers use advanced materials like carbon fiber and special metal alloys. These materials help the train hold up under stress while not weighing it down, because heavier weight would take more energy to push up to speed. In a major milestone late in 2025, researchers at China's National University of Defense Technology set a world record when a superconducting Maglev test vehicle was sent to 700 kilometers per hour in just 2 seconds on a short test track. That test vehicle also was brought back to a safe stop, proving not just speed, but controlled motion in one run. That acceleration is so fast that the train almost seems to disappear before your eyes, like a flash of lightning. But before that, other tests, like accelerating a Maglev prototype to 650 kilometers per hour in just a few seconds, were already breaking records and proving that the core technologies for ultra-high-speed transport are getting stronger and more reliable. These tests also showed that the systems could not only speed up quickly, but slow down safely in a short distance. Both are necessary if such systems will ever carry people. This train project brings together ground railway technology with aerospace-level engineering skills. That's because creating such a long, sealed tube and controlling air pressure inside it requires some of the same expertise that rocket and missile engineers use. Those teams are now turning that knowledge toward building one of the fastest forms of ground transport ever imagined. Because this system is so complex, everything must be tested thoroughly before it can be turned over for public use, because once passengers are on board, there is no room for failure. Breaking the speed limits. In China, big government planning normally runs in long cycles that stretch out over 5 years at a time. During each cycle, officials set goals, decide which research projects to push forward, and lay out what should happen year by year. For ultra-high-speed maglev trains and low-pressure tube systems, the plans were meant to build up the foundation so that by the mid-2020s, major technical milestones could be hit. Officials and engineers hope that by around 2026, there will be long enough test tracks and strong enough prototype vehicles to finally show the world what a true full-scale run at speeds near 1,000 kilometers per hour looks like. The thinking is that, by that point, the whole system should be fully up and running. It must have been shown to work at real engineering scale. Part of this progress already happened when China's ultra-high-speed maglev vehicle completed a demonstration test in a 2-kilometer low-pressure tube, showing stable levitation, safe stopping, and controlled movement according to the designer's plans. That demonstration also confirmed the ability to set up and keep a large low-pressure environment that can support navigation and suspension in the tube. If all the pieces are in place by 2026, many experts see that year as the logical moment for a big public reveal, a full-speed test that clearly demonstrates that China didn't just draw an idea, they built it, and it works. To set off a project like this, where so much planning, engineering, and testing must line up, you need both momentum and timing. That's why 2026 is being seen as a turning point, where what was once research on paper could become something everyone can see in action. After the demonstration, the next stages are already being mapped out. If these full-speed tests go well and the systems keep working safely, the focus will shift to laying down plans for real travel routes. That means asking questions like, which cities should be linked first? Where is the best place to put stations? And how can this new technology fit in with the rail lines and airports that already exist in China and beyond? For example, many engineers and planners are thinking about routes between major city clusters, large urban areas where millions of people live and work close together. It makes sense to sort out which of these city links would benefit most from ultra-fast travel and where building stations could have the biggest impact on daily life and business. For China, the journey between cities such as Beijing and Shanghai is often discussed because it is so heavily traveled and currently takes several hours even on the fastest trains. Right now, the fastest high-speed train service on that corridor takes about 4 hours and 18 minutes, a long trip for many people. But if a vacuum tube maglev were to run at near 1,000-kilometer speeds, the same journey could shrink down to around 90 minutes. That kind of time saving is huge, similar to watching a couple of movies. People could travel hundreds of kilometers without feeling like they've lost half a day. If such trains become real and regular, a job in another city might only be just over an hour away. That means someone could get up, take a super-fast train to work, and still be back home in time for dinner, a possibility that would have seemed unbelievable to most people just a few years ago. Students could travel to a university in another city and still visit their families most weekends, without spending half a day on the road or on slower trains between classes. Families that live far apart could see each other far more often because the trip would feel quick, not like a burden that eats up time. And the potential benefits go beyond just people. Speedy, tube-based maglev lines could one day be used to shove through important packages and time-sensitive goods at speeds that today only airplanes can reach. Hospitals could get critical supplies delivered faster, factories could speed up part deliveries, even e-commerce logistics could be completely shaken up because a package could be sent faster. The same technologies that make these ultra-fast tubes and magnets work could also spin out into other areas, like systems to launch rockets faster or new kinds of underground freight routes. It's easy to picture, a train on the ground, moving like a jet in the sky, flying through a giant tube of thin air. For many people, it still sounds like science fiction. But brick by brick, test by test, engineers in China are trying to make it something normal. If they manage to hit that 1,000 km/h mark and keep everything safe while doing it, our idea of what counts as a long distance might never be the same again. So, do you think China can achieve this in 2026? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.